I am Emma.
And I'm Kerry.
And today we have a very, very special guest. He's very special to my heart because since the beginning of me channeling, he's always kind of been around. And so I'm really happy today that we have Freddie Mercury.
Yeah! Okay, you have to start with telling the story. I remember one of your first Freddie stories you had was in the car. He went carpooling with you.
I was driving in my car, and I was going to pick up my kids from school, and Gerald was sitting next to me, and we were just driving on the highway, and a song of Queen comes on. I Want to Break Free, where they're kind of like dressed up like women and start vacuuming and stuff. All of a sudden, I see in my head, I see Freddie Mercury, I see Eric, and I see Robin Williams, all dressed up as females with very short skirts. They all had not Freddie, but Eric and Robin had very hairy legs. And they're just all like vacuuming and looking at me and waving at me in my mind. And I start giggling, and Gerald next to me goes, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And I said, "Uh-huh. Isn't that funny?" Until Gerald describes exactly what I'm seeing. So we were both being greeted by these three amazing men in a miniature skirt on high heels doing the vacuuming. So it was just a lot of fun. And that was one of the first times where Freddie actually stepped forward and where Robin stepped forward with me, because it used to be just Eric that would come up, and so he kind of introduced me to these spirits, and they have been helping me ever since.
Oh, that's such a cool story, and I can't believe that Gerald saw it too.
He was like, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And I was like, "Isn't it funny? Look at their legs." And the thing is, you see it mentally. Yeah. It's like a being in a daydream. You're seeing it in your mind. And we were just both giggling, and it was so much fun. And they were just, imitating, and they were all singing, and it was just funny.
Like, let's go mess with her. Well, okay, should we jump in?
Let's jump in.
Okay,
He's already waving. He's already waving.
Like, hello, I'm here. Okay, what does he look like? What's he wearing? What does our guest have on today?
He's just presenting himself to me, the Freddie with the mustache. He's very clean.
I love the way you say that.
He's actually wearing, well, what I'm saying, very hair, very nice back, nicely. His mustache is all trimmed and perfect. And he's really just wearing a complete white suit with red shoes.
So what color is his shirt?
It's all white. All I can see is like a tailored suit. It's all white. And he's just wearing really bright, it almost looks like a tennis shoe underneath.
That's funny. I love that. And how tall was he?
It's like 1.70 meters, something like that, I think.
Here we go again.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. It is that system works so much better than ours. But
1.70 meters.
Okay, so you guys will.
He's taller than me.
Well, everybody's taller than you, honey.
That's true. It's true. 1.70 meters, I would estimate, something like that.
How tall are you?
1.55 meters.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't translate. All right, for me, it doesn't translate. So we'll just keep moving. Well, okay, so I love the way you broke these down. And by the way, hi, Freddie. Nice to have you here.
He's saying, "Hello, darling. How are you today?"
I'm doing well. Very excited. And I had a Queen shirt. It was a really great shirt. And I decided that with the color of my hair right now, it just didn't really go. And I figured you would understand that. So it's all about the presentation.
He's saying absolutely, and I love the hat.
Thank you. It's a little tattered, not because I bought it tattered, just because it's been well loved. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So Emma broke these down into phases, and I love that because I think it'll be coherent. So we'll just dive in. Are you two ready?
We're ready.
Ready, Freddie? Okay.
Ready.
Sarah would like to know, as a child, was there a knowing in your spirit that you were bound to do something great in this life?
He's laughing. I just want to slouch and just kind of hang.
Just kind of
yeah,
kick back.
I feel like I just want to kick back and relax. He's laughing with me. He's like, just go with the flow, darling. It'll be fine. He's saying, okay.
You're giggly.
I'm sorry. He makes me giggly. He's saying, Sarah, darling, I always knew that my future was going to be a creative one because as a young child, I drew a lot, and my sister and I were very much excited whenever we received, he calls it expired Western magazines. It's like, well, really, they were. We got these magazines that had fashion in it, and they had all about the celebrities in it. But by the time we got them, they were like months old, so they were always expired. But we always got very excited by that. And so I kind of knew I always had an interest in fashion. I always had an interest in designing. I always had an interest in drawing, and I loved music. So either way, I always knew in the core of my being, when I was a little boy, that it had to be something creative. I couldn't see myself sitting at a desk doing the same thing over and over again. And so I was very much drawn to the Western world. Don't keep in mind that I grew up in India. So, I was very much drawn to Europe and all of what was going on over there. And I was very much drawn to America and things like that. And so my mom, she would, every now and then she would play music, but it was a little bit of everything, a little bit of mixture of music. And whenever she did, I couldn't stand still. I had to dance, I had to sing, and I had to entertain. And I just loved being in the spotlight, because I felt at that time, as a child, a lot of times I felt alone. And I felt that I had to take kind of care and provide for myself, especially after I went to boarding school. I was really much, it's like, there you go. Now you figure it out. I was really, I was forced to become self-dependent for everything, for love, to receive love. I was forced to, be able to take care of myself physically, emotionally, but also spiritually. And so I was sent over there by the age of 7, all by my lonesome. Get you on a boat, take a long train, and you end up in India in a boarding school. And it was a great, despite the fact that I really didn't want to go to begin with, I really was kind of protesting it. But when I went there, that's really where I discovered my musical talents. So in a way, the fear that I felt for going there was quickly resolved with the fact that I became a musician in that school. And that opened up a big awareness that I needed to do something in music.
I would think that being on your own, as much as you can be at a school, but being on your own at that age, you've pulled away from the identity and the energy of your family. And so that probably allowed you that opportunity to express and grow and change your name and do these different things. I would think that actually was a step in that direction.
Absolutely. It gave me more of an insight, he says, into who I was as an individual. And I got a chance to nurture that individuality away from family. And I loved my family. Don't get me wrong. I still love my family. I loved my sister. Family is everything. It really is. And it's your support system. But I felt very different than the way that they perceived what my future should look like. So being in that kind of solitude, as you could say, I guess, it really allowed me to develop me as myself without having my father or my mother interfering too much with what I was doing at that time.
Well, that actually brings up the next question. Miss Elena, Elena wanted to know, what was your relationship like with your dad? I know that probably most of the people watching have seen the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, which we'd love to talk about at some point. But it kind of portrayed that there was a little bit of a push and pull in the direction you went.
Well, my father's with me right now, he says, so I got to watch what I'm saying. He's laughing. He's like, not really. He says, well, I don't think my father really ever understood me. He was a man who liked to live by the rules of others. He was an honorable man whose first priority was to provide for his family, but he also demanded respect and obedience. And as I was kind of rebellious, I was a very rebellious type, especially when it came to authority. I guess I disappointed him a lot. And our troubled relationship did lead to, I just want to tell you, everything has a purpose, people. Everything has a purpose. Now, our troubled relationship did lead to my drive to succeed and show him that I could become someone great, that it didn't always have to be the way that he presented it or that he imagined it to be. For him, being great was being a doctor, being a lawyer. That was being great. That was being successful. And so our troubled relationship really led to me having that ultimate drive to show him that I could become great in my own unique way. And so he was with me in that lifetime to push me, to give my ultimate dream, the biggest success push that I could ever get was to prove him wrong in a way. So I loved my father, I respected him, but I was very rebellious against his ideas. We didn't see eye to eye till later on in the career that I had. But it was precious. It was a valuable life lesson of how someone can push your buttons and help you to achieve greatness.
I just kept hearing, it took balls to do what you did, cojones. I mean, it is safe being a businessman, being a lawyer, those are beautiful, incredible jobs, and people are very successful. But to carve out your own version of success, especially at that time in life, at that time of where we were, if you look at it, 70s, 60s, that took a lot. So that's really admirable.
I keep wanting to do this, but I don't have a cigarette and I don't smoke, Freddie. So don't do it.
Don't gonna get in trouble. You might smoke.
I keep wanting to do this, like she wants to. I'm like, no, don't smoke. Sorry.
Glad you don't have one handy. Okay, so now we're heading into adulthood. So Connie Cheek, I love that name. In life, what was your biggest fear?
He's like, ooh, should I reveal?
Yes.
He seems like he was very private when it came to his things.
His things?
His, who he was in core. He feels like he's always kind of protective over that, but he's willing to share, he says. He says, I guess my biggest fear would be not being loved and being alone. I also didn't trust a lot of people. He says, you see, there in the moments where I was alone, the moments in between the Freddie moments, and I became Farouk again, I really was confronted with the true me, and I was confronted with a silence and an emptiness inside of myself, because at those times, Freddie Mercury disappeared, and the insecure and the very scared Farouk Bulsara would come back. And I was a little like Superman. when I put my Freddie suit on, I was unstoppable. I was fearless. I was all powerful. But when I was alone, I became scared. I became clumsy. I became shy. And so in a way, I guess you could say that I had a double personality, and I needed both. And let me explain that. I needed the Freddie character to be able to accomplish my dreams, to be able to do what I loved doing, to be able to fulfill my highest and my truest desires. But I also needed Farouk to keep me grounded at some point. Yeah. Because as Freddie, I was pretty wild. And I would do some major exploration. But I always had Farouk to come home to. But I did feel insecure in my Farouk character. I did feel insecure when everybody disappeared and the evening came and I was alone. This insecurity came up. So I would say my biggest fear was being alone and not being loved.
I wonder how much of that goes back to being on your own since you were 7 years old. I mean, and not on your own, but on your own.
I think it had a lot to do with it because in a way, despite the fact that I understood why I had to go, my father just wanted the best education, just wanted me to have a future and so on and so forth. In a way, it almost felt like they pushed me away. In a way, kind of on a subconscious level, it almost feels like you're being thrown out of the family, and I know it wasn't like that, but it felt like that, especially at the beginning when I had to fit in and I had to find my way and make friends. And at the beginning, it's just a really scary thing.
Oh, it makes me feel homesick. Like you do feel homesick. Well, so I would think that a lot of entertainers would feel this way, that it is that big and you're feeling that energy hitting you from the crowd, and it's just this adoration. And I'm sure you are an empath, and I'm sure you could feel that. So the two different sides of yourself, how did you keep that in balance? And or did you? I mean, did Freddie become the go-to? Or not the go-to?
So, oh, darling, I never had a balance. That didn't occur. I had massive ups and downs, and I had mood swings, and we, even the band members know there were, you had good Freddie and bad Freddie. I don't think I ever found a balance. I really just surrendered to what happened in that moment, and I really didn't think, about where I was going or what I was doing. If something felt right, I would just go and explore. And if it didn't, then, I would pull back and take a look at it, So there was not really a moment where I felt like both were in balance. There were times where Freddie completely took over and I lost myself mostly. When Freddie takes over, I lost myself. And I needed friends and family to pull me back and say, hey, what you're doing is not good for you. It's not, it is driving you in a direction that's going to be very harmful towards you, your career. And, all they had to say was, it's going to affect your singing career. And I was like, okay, I'm out. Because that was my happy place. Singing was everything to me. It was what fueled me in this lifetime.
So when I watch the show, when I watched the, I can't say the M word, movie, I was amazed at it. It's like we have life, like the everyday life. Do we go to school? Do we not go to school? Do we do the laundry? We go to the bathroom, we wash our hair. We have everyday life. And then we have a life where you just excel. And it's like the details are so huge. Like I was watching what they portrayed, the part where you're making the opera, this rock opera. And it's like, no, this isn't right. No, we need it higher. We need it louder. We need it. And it's now, were you like that in all of your life? Or did that just really, like, you just knew what was right and you knew what you wanted when it actually popped up? I mean, when you hit that note, yep, that's what I want. I don't know if my question is clear. It's just
Let's just say, he says, that I was very perfectionistic, and a lot of times I had this idea in my mind, and so I knew what I wanted to reach, but a lot of times really it was touch and go. It was just trial and error with the band, and let's try this, let's try that. No, that doesn't work. That's crap. That's that's great. So it was we were a very experimental band, and we would experiment with a lot of different things. But and don't forget, we had songs from all different band members, so it wasn't just me writing them. So what the other band members had envisioned, of course, I couldn't know, but so that's when we went touch and go. For my own songs, I always had an idea of how I wanted it to be, but even then, sometimes we would switch it and change it. So it really was a constant trial and error until we found what was perfect, and you just felt it. It was a feeling that we all had, like, yeah, that's it. Right there, that note, that key, let's do that background, let's add this instrument. It really was, and I think a lot of artists nowadays are missing that. But music for us really was a creative process. It was like a painting, and you have these amazing painters, Da Vinci, love Da Vinci. And, they would start and try again and add something and fix something and remove something. And, it was always in a working process. And that's how our music was. We were always improving and changing and adding, just like a sculptor, just like a painter, just like anybody who's creative. So music for us was a creative expression, I believe, of source in some way or form. It was our way of bringing beauty and moving people in the heart core to really have an effect, how would I say it, a life-changing experience for our listeners. And that's really what we wanted to achieve. And we all felt that very strongly. Queen needed to be something else. Queen needed to be unique. And I believe that we achieved that.
So I think everyone would agree with that. I just recall when I was young, like 9 or 10, and Another One Bites the Dust. And I used to always make up, if I didn't know what the words were, I'd make them up. And it was Another One Bites the doctor. Another One Bites the doctor. Hey. And it just totally made sense. Anyway, I still have to sing it that way. Okay. So the next part. Sorry about
laughing.
that.
He's like, hey, whatever floats your boat, girly.
Whatever gets you there. Or there was, hey, you, get off my cloud. And it was, hey, Hugh, get off. I was like, why is Hugh on the cloud? He needs to get off that cloud. Okay. All right. So now, and this is really what I wanted to talk about. And I'm so glad Gloria Grawl, she wanted to know, how did you feel about Jim? And he was your partner, for a long time, the last part of your life. And I personally want to know, how was it when he crossed? I can imagine that reunion, because I know he crossed in 2010.
10, he says.
Mm-hmm. He had lung cancer.
He's like, it's a miracle I never died of lung cancer. We both smoked like chimneys. He says he was my friend. He was my lover. And despite the fact that we couldn't legally get married, in my mind, I knew we were. I loved him, and I'm very grateful that he was there to aid me through the last few years of my life. I mean, I thought it was so unbelievably brave of him to stick with somebody who basically had a death sentence. And, I told him I had AIDS, and he still decided that he loved me enough to hang out, to stick around. And for me, that was a sign of true love, unconditional love, that despite the odds, despite the fact that he knew I was going to get really ill, he was going to be there, and he was going to support me. And that was very brave of him. And he also knew that my love for him and my love for Mary was not at the same level. He knew that, but he still accepted that. and he stuck with me through everything. So I can say with a pure heart that I loved him in my own unique way, and that he loved me in his own unique way. And when he crossed, I was there to meet him. I was the first person, of course, I was the first person to show up, and I actually came and got him. And I showed him around. I know it sounds a little funny, but I had to show him the its and bits because I wanted to show him just how beautiful heaven really was. And he was, let's just say that he was a little confused at first. When he crossed over, he wasn't quite sure what was happening. So I had to be very gentle with him, and I had to let him know that, hey, I'm really here, because he thought he was dreaming. I had to let him know that I was really here, and that we were going to go and see heaven. And so he just grabbed my hand, and we floated towards there. We didn't really walk. You don't really have to walk anymore here, which is a lot of fun. But we just, I just took him to where he needed to go, where he was surrounded and greeted by family and by friends, because he had also had a few friends who died of AIDS before me as well. So it was a good, it was a good homecoming. It was a good homecoming, and we still see each other now. But he's very much off doing a lot of his own things. He's very much into healing children. And I'm very much into supporting young artists, creative people, helping them to find their own je ne sais quoi, and, to really shine as who they are themselves. That's really what I do.
Oh, and to bring that light and to bring that just juicy Freddie. So juicy. Beautiful. Well, and I
always, darling, I'm always juicy.
I'm not touching that one. Okay, I did bring it up. Okay, so Isis wanted to know, in your life as Freddie, you had a very close relationship with Mary, whom you wanted to, I can't say M words, marry. I guess that's not true. Have you shared other lives with her? And can you talk about them? What were they?
First of all, I want to say, hi, Mary. I love you. Because Mary was my fucking soulmate. She was the love of my life. From the very first time I saw her, I was mesmerized by her beauty and by her beautiful smile. She was very shy, believe it or not. She was very shy like me. And that quality made her even more attractive because we were the same. We were the same. I mean, Freddie hadn't been created yet back then. Don't forget that, So I was a very shy and very timid young man, and she was equally shy, and that really attracted me to her. I mean, she was gorgeous and beautiful, and there she is being all shy, being insecure about who she was, and it was just kind of a beautiful thing for me to see that I wasn't alone in that. And I was introduced to her by Brian, who had gone out with her a couple of times. They had dated, but I guess it didn't work out between them. So after several months, I finally collected the courage to ask her out. And after that, everything went really quick. It really went fast. We moved in together very quickly. We fell in love like crazy. And the thing that I loved about our relationship is she fell in love with the real Farouk. Mm-hmm. She knew all my darkest secrets. She knew everything I was embarrassed about, everything I was ashamed about, everything I was shy about. She knew all of my insecurities, but also all of my dreams, all of my wishes, my desires, my sexual desires. She knew a lot of things. And the only thing she didn't know was, and I hadn't found out yet, was that I was also attracted to men. That came later. But you see, she knew me on such an intimate level, and she loved me for it. And she supported me, and she I mean, she was the drive behind me finding myself in a way, you know? And even your parents don't know everything about you. They don't know your deepest desires and your darkest secrets, but she did. So she was my everything. She was my friend. She was my soulmate. But my attraction to men made me feel unfaithful to her. And I kept it from her for a very long time. But she knew something was going on. She could feel it. We really were spiritually connected. We are on that spiritual level where whenever I felt something, she could feel it as well. She could sense it. You know, we could finish each other's sentences. And so for years, I was tormented because my love for her was so great, so massive. And the thought of losing her made me feel sick inside. But at the same time, I loved her so much that I didn't want to continue to hide things from her, you know, and I really didn't want to hurt her either, you know, and I knew and I could see that me hiding things from her was hurting her. She, you know, I could feel it. And it was so hard for me to see my soulmate suffer because I couldn't be fully honest about what I felt sexually. And so despite the fact that our relationship ended, she always remained the love of my life. She always remained my soulmate. And that is why I wanted her to be close to me all the time, all the time. So she continued, you know, there's really no words, he says, to describe what kind of relationship we had. But she continued to nurture my soul. She helped me to become more complete. She protected me, you know, and I didn't always listen, but she never gave up on me, you know, and that, my friends, is true unconditional love. So we were soulmates, and despite the intimate relationship that we had, we were not ultimately meant to continue that intimate relationship, but we needed to continue the soulmate relationship. And I think a lot of people believe, or they see soulmates as purely, you know, husband and wife, or, you know, spouses, or, you know, somebody you spend the rest of your life with as an intimate partner. But soulmates can also be on a completely different level. And as I was a rebellious anyway, you know, I didn't like the whole, you know, getting married, man, wife, you know, this, that. It's so much structure and it's so controlled. And if you don't do it exactly the way society tells you to, then it's not accepted. But, you know, I believe that love cannot be contained. Love cannot be restricted with boundaries. It cannot be placed in a mold, but it should be allowed to flourish the way that it comes, the way that it feels most comfortable. And that is what I experienced with Mary, and that is what I experienced with my other partners, is we allowed love to grow and guide us in whatever direction it came, and in whatever form it came, we accepted it, and we absorbed it, because he says love, we truly absorb love. It becomes part of our entity. It becomes part of our DNA. And so when we truly love someone, they become part of you, and you become part of them. And so it utterly absorbs you, and you absorb it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I don't know how to explain it. It is so intense. And that is what my relationship was with Mary.
Well, it sounds like she gave you the wings. I mean, she gave you the ability to go explore while still feeling safe and still feeling like you had a touchstone, a place that you could go back and
she was my support. She was my everything.
Mm-hmm. So how did you do when she because I believe she has 2 children. How did I know that, and I know you were very involved with them, but how did that hit you from a human side?
There were times where it was really hard because they were not my children. But despite the fact that they're my godsons, I really saw them as my own sons. It was hard to see Mary move on, but at the same time, I totally understood and I supported her in that as well. And in that aspect, I didn't want to be selfish because I was moving on and I was having other partners. I was having other love interests. So I needed, despite how painful it was to see, I needed to allow her and support her in having other relationships as well. But I know, in my eyes, they are as much my sons as they are the other fathers.
You guys both must have had just the most incredible partners to be able to. Not a lot of people, I think, could.
Well, and I think
do that.
For Mary, I believe that it was really hard for her to, because not all the relationships worked out with her, either. So it was really hard to find the Freddie that she was looking for. And for me, it was really hard to find the Mary.
Yeah. That's well said.
Yeah.
Okay. So Rochelle wanted to know, I'm curious to know if the dental abnormalities you were born with, which ended up enhancing your voice and vibration, were planned prior to birth, or you just used it to your advantage after the fact?
He says, "Oh, darling, they were all part of another plan. The reason behind them had nothing to do with my singing, although during my lifetime, I was convinced that my sound had everything to do with my dental structure. I know better now. It was my heart that did the singing, not my teeth. Bloody hell." He says, "if only I had known that before my death." He's going like he would have cut him off.
Oh no.
No. He's like, I'm just teasing. But yeah, if I had known that it would have not have affected anything, then I might have done something about it. But for me, my singing was more important. So I was like, better be safe.
Yeah,
my looks were not as important as my music. So I chose music. And I wasn't the greatest looking guy out there. I knew that, but I had panache, he says, and I had flair, and boy, did I know how to dress myself. So, that was my, that made me gorgeous, darling.
Yes, it did.
Laughing.
And I just want to say, and don't take this out of context, a fairy, to me, you don't feel human. You were like, not a fairy. I know you're going to play with that one, but it was like you just had this light, bubbly. You were like an effervescent. You were like a fairy. You were you felt to me small and very light, like you would almost float.
Well, that was just because I was thin, honey.
No, it was more.
He's laughing. He's like, it's the energy. It's my energy on stage that people really fell in love with, and it was my charisma and it was my passion for music. It just poured out of all my pores, and it just poured over everybody who was there. It was a contagious virus. When I was on that stage, this virus would release, and everybody was intoxicated by it. And I think that's really what it was. It was the energy that made me fly over the stage, and so understand this. He says, in life, only when you follow your highest excitement and your highest passion and you stay loving and true to yourself, you will find that abundance and the achievements that you all long for. And so my life was far from perfect, but it was wonderful and it was unique. And if I may say so, darling, it was fucking brilliant and so much fun. So, I have absolutely, no regrets. And people would say, well, wouldn't you have done this different? No. Life is a fucking piece of art, and you just create it, and then you in a way, you kind of leave it for generations and generations to look at it, to be inspired by it, to be moved by it, to, to receive that energy from all of that beautiful art that we've created. And that is still what's happening today. And it's been so long. But to this day, they're still making music. They're still playing our songs. And people all over the world know and connect to what we are singing. And I think that's the beauty of it. So no, it was not part of a plan. It was not part of, okay, I'm going to pick the bad teeth before I get born. That didn't happen. But it did help me to find self-confidence, to really just find acceptance for who I was and how I looked like, and to not allow that to stop me. Because so many people out there want to become performers, and they look at themselves and they go, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not this enough. Fuck that shit, okay? This is about showing just how beautiful and how perfect you really are in your own unique way. And that's what it's all about.
That mic drop. And I thought you were cute as a button, so I'm not sure what you're even talking about. Okay.
It's, I would like energy, darling. Like I said, when your energy expresses itself and goes, boom, there's a God on stage. Guess what? People are going to be like, oh my God, a God. Yeah. People don't respond to how you look, despite what everybody believes. People respond to the energy that you express on stage. And that's what makes people fall in love with you.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more, except that my hair, when my energy's down, my hair goes flat. Doesn't matter. Okay. Anna would like to know, was HIV a soul contract? And what was the lesson about with the battle you faced with your sexuality and people around you? Can I add one more thing to that? Did you really not know that you were attracted to the same sex before? I mean, did you really discover that later?
I did discover it on a later age, although I did always feel very comfortable in male company. But I thought it was just, camaraderie, just the boys. But when it comes to my sexual preferences, it did come at a later age where I kind of, you have to understand, my parents were very religious, so being gay or bisexual or whatever other form, whatever your preference is, it wasn't really discussed. So when something is not in your awareness, it can still be present inside of you, this kind of feeling, but until it becomes part of your awareness, it becomes part of your reality. And then you start attracting that. And that's really what it was being confronted with a man who would address me and flirt with me. And that was like, oh my God, why am I responding to this flirtation in such a positive way? Why do I feel all of a sudden drawn to this person? So that's when the awareness kicked in.
Got it.
When it comes to the AIDS, yes, it was part of a bigger plan. It was part of a plan that was even bigger than my own personal journey with it. It really was a self-sacrifice that I did for the collective awareness and the collective expansion. And he says, I needed to transition from AIDS to globally bring awareness to the disease and to seed compassion and love within those who judged and rejected the people who were confronted with the illness, who suffered from AIDS. Because you have to keep in mind, when this all started, even doctors didn't want to touch patients who had AIDS. Nobody wanted to get near them. They were in a way, rejected from society. They went from being loved one day to finding out they have AIDS, and all of a sudden nobody wants to go near you. Nobody wants to touch you anymore. Everybody's terrified of you and being outcasted out of society.
Yeah.
And so I was here to plant that seed of compassion for people who were going through the illness. And it spread out later on to everyone who had an illness, that there was compassion. All of a sudden, people were collecting money for that disease, and so it was part of that collective expansion to create compassion, even if we don't fully understand what it is, what it's doing, how it's being spread. There is still compassion. And to this day, that compassion is still flourishing and it's still moving. There has not been new illnesses that came in where doctors went, oh, we don't want to get near this person because we don't know what it is. They have grown from that. And I believe that I'm part of that growth. I believe that I was part of bringing a spotlight to the illness so we could find better medication for it so we can fund it, but also bringing a spotlight to the people who were suffering from it. And so for a very long time, there's a lot of hate against those souls who loved from their hearts and not from a perspective of social acceptance, and I have to say, I loved all. I loved women and men, but my preference went out to men. And so I was also here to plant seeds of sexual acceptance and equality. And that has been growing slowly, but we're still not where where I believe we should be. So there's still lots of work on that. So to everyone, come on, people. Love is love, people. So no matter what shape or form it expresses itself in, there is always love. And this is the good thing about heaven is here there is no gender. So there is love from all around. It doesn't matter what shape or form it comes into. And we can have that on earth as well. So that's something we're still working on. For me, the AIDS was just a lesson of acceptance, surrendering to what is, and making the best out of what I had left. And I think I did that.
I think you did that beautifully, and I know you were very private about that. Okay,
I was.
And that's what they were saying. Like you would get your treatments, but early in the morning, so that there weren't people there that would see you. Why did you not hide that, but why did you? Well, I guess you sort of did hide that.
I did hide it. I even hid it from my band members for a very, very long time. They didn't know I had AIDS till like my last weeks. They knew I was sick, but they didn't know what I had.
Wow.
I believe that I did that because I guess I didn't want people to see me any different. I guess I wanted them to continue to love me in the way that they did. I didn't want it to affect my music. I didn't want it to affect our lives because, you're already very scrutinized and you're always followed by the press, and they're always trying to figure out a story. And I hated that. And I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of making this into something where they would make tons of money off speculating who did it, who gave it to him, who did that. It didn't matter. I had it. It was my burden to bear, and I didn't want my illness to affect my family, my band members. They were my family. I didn't want the story of AIDS to overshadow who we were as a group, and I didn't want it to overshadow our music. So I continued to write music until I couldn't anymore. That's why I revealed it on the day that I died.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
I revealed it to the press on the day that I died.
Wow. So
because then it was all over, so they couldn't.
Like,
too
done.
late.
You guys.
This is what I was thinking. Too late, bitches.
Too late, bitches. Mic drop. Okay. Katie would like to know, did you ever regret going against your parents and changing your name from Farouk to Freddie? And have you felt that you've always been no, wait, that you've always been Freddie and had never truly been Baruch?
No, he says no regrets. No regrets. I followed my heart, and I needed to name Freddie to create the character of the individual that I knew I could be. But I was too shy and fearful to become famous as just me. And the name Farouk just doesn't ring any bells. And Freddie, it just doesn't. It's not going to sell any records. Freddie was a nickname that was given to me by classmates when I was in boarding school in India. So Freddie was very natural to me, and it was already been adopted by my parents. So, you know, even at home, they were using the name Freddie. So it was just very easy for me to kind of separate the glamness of me, you know, from the true me. And so I have no regrets. In fact, it's actually one of the best decisions I ever made. You know, it led me to inspire millions of people all around the world by creating a new persona, a new name that I officially then made my name. But that said, I want to very much clarify that I was proud of my heritage. You know, it's not because I changed the name that I wasn't proud of where I came from, of who I was or how I was raised. I was very proud of my Indian roots, and the name just became, you know, my alter ego, and that's what I needed in order to become who I became. So no regrets there.
Oh. So that's sort of like it was almost, you had your roots and then you had your Western side, you know, it's kind of like Pearl with.
It's like a duality. It's like living with a duality that makes a perfect whole.
Yes. All right. We're moving on to the career. Alice would like to know, what advice do you have to musicians, singers, performers?
Well, I think I've addressed this once, and it's that I would say never try to fit in, you know, but try and stand out. Don't fit in, try and stand out. Too many artists try to fit into a box of what is successful at this moment. But when you do that, you will become part of the background. It's as simple as that. So be true to yourself, find your own uniqueness, and more importantly, do not believe, you know, do not believe that you can't do this. You know, so many people want to be star and celebrity, but they don't believe it themselves. Now, how can other people believe you will become a celebrity and see a celebrity in you when you don't even see it within yourself? It's just a flight idea out there. I want to be that. But when you look at yourself, you go, I can never be that. Well, then it's never going to happen now, is it? Now, it's only a matter of allowing the universe to guide you to the right people and already living your daily life as the star that you want to become. And I knew that. I lived my life. I was a star when I was 7 years old, and you know, and I was a star. I behaved that way. I had that knowing in my heart, and I lived and made decisions based on, you know, becoming a star. And that's really what it is. You have to already know it. You have to know it in your heart. It has to be a certainty within you, and only then you can create that. You can manifest it, and people will be sent to you. Things will come into your path that are going to lead you there. But that's what most people miss, is one, originality. They want to do what everybody else is doing because it's popular, and a lot of other people got famous because of it, but then you just blend in and you end up in the background. 2, believe in yourself. Trust yourself. Trust in your own abilities. 3, you want to be a fucking star, then act like it. Even if it's not like that right now. Become it. Act it. Make it part of your identity.
Don't play small.
No, don't. You think small, you're going to get small stuff. You got to think big, and big things will happen.
There you go. Well, that kind of goes to this next question. I love this question. So Mandy Dupuy, I think I'm saying that right. Mm-hmm. She wants to know, what is your advice for her to overcome stage fright? She said she loves to sing and it's one of her gifts, but she is too afraid to share it. Come on, Mandy, you can do it.
Yes, go, Amanda. Or Mandy. He's going, that's a hard question to answer because it does depend on the individual. But what I can say is, and it's really very simple, but still it seems so hard to achieve. But basically, you have to determine for yourself what is more important in your life, your love or your fear. Everything's a choice. So you need to make an important decision in your life whether or not you will allow something that isn't real. And yes, I've said it, fear isn't real. It's a man-made tool to keep you in control. So fear does not exist in your true self. So you need to decide whether or not you will allow an illusionary concept to determine the rest of your life, to determine your future. Whether or not it is worth throwing away your chance of abundance, of happiness, and of success. That is the choice you need to make. There's no, some people say just picture everybody naked. I love that, but, it doesn't always work. It really is making a decision to eliminate the fear that is inside of you. And it is, everything in life is about choice, and this is the only choice you need to make. So it's simple, but at the same very hard. And so working on releasing the fear, figuring out where the fear comes from, and then eliminating it, because what do you got to lose? You all go home super famous, super important, and super loved. So what's the big deal? What do you got to lose to just be you? Make the choice.
That's beautiful, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, I stutter, I stammer, I talk around my words, and I'm by no means whatever, but I just remember thinking either I can do this show or I cannot. Those are my choices. And what happens if I don't? I will always wonder, what if? And then what happens if I do? I stutter. So what? So you go out and you squeak, or you can't do it, or you sweat, or you fall down. So what? I mean, it really is a so what.
It is. And, we all get nervous. Even we did, you all get nervous, but I would jump around and I would shake it off, and I'd be like, fuck it. And that's how you get on. You just get, fuck it, let's go have fun. And that's really what it needs to be. It needs to be fun. And, Kerry, he says, your stutter is beautiful. So embrace it. It's beautiful. People love you for it. So.
Well, I thank you for that.